All right, let's talk about something that we've all felt but maybe couldn't quite put our finger on. We're going to decode the unwritten rules of work, those secret dynamics that really shape our careers. Understanding these is the real key to figuring out why one job feels like a perfect fit and another feels like a constant uphill battle. You know that feeling, right? You're showing up, you're doing the work, you're collecting a paycheck, but deep down, something just feels off. Kind of like you're a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. Well, it turns out that feeling isn't just in your head, it's actually a massive global phenomenon. I'm sure you've heard the buzzword quiet quitting, and a lot of people mistake it for just being lazy. But that's not it at all. It's really a symptom of a much, much bigger problem, a huge engagement gap. And this gap, it's this deep canyon between what companies are offering and what people actually need to feel motivated and, valued at work. So, this is what we're calling the Great Disconnect. And here's the really strange part. Companies are spending more money than ever before trying to make employees happy, but engagement levels? They're totally flatlining. So what on earth is really going on here? That's right, billions with a B. Companies are pouring cash into all sorts of perks, fancy offices, wellness apps, you name it. And yet, the data from all around the world shows that employee engagement hasn't really budged. It kind of makes you think maybe they're trying to solve the wrong problem. To get to the bottom of this, we have to look past the official job offer, beyond the written contract. We need to look at the invisible agreement that truly defines our relationship with our jobs. This is the unwritten deal. And that brings us to this really fascinating idea called the psychological contract. This isn't about your job description or your salary. It's about all the unspoken expectations, things like fairness, respect, opportunities for growth. And when that invisible contract gets broken, trust disappears. That's when people check out. Now, these psychological contracts, they generally come in two main flavors. First, you've got the transactional contract. This is all about a simple exchange. I do this specific job, you pay me for it. Think short term, think gig work. But then you have the relational contract. This one's way more long term. It's built on loyalty and mutual commitment, that classic idea of dedicating your career to a company in exchange for security and a sense of purpose. So if this unwritten deal is so important, what actually goes into it? What makes a deal feel fair and, actually motivating? Well, as we're about to see, it goes way, way beyond just the paycheck. Okay, so there's this brilliant psychologist, Frederick Hertzberg, and he had this total game-changing insight. He said the things that make us unhappy at work are completely separate from the things that make us happy. He called the first group hygiene factors, things like your salary or your office conditions. Getting these right doesn't make you happy. It just stops you from being unhappy. Real, genuine satisfaction, that comes from motivators. Things like feeling a sense of achievement, getting recognized, and doing work that actually feels meaningful. And here's the bottom line, the big takeaway from all his work. You just cannot pay someone enough to genuinely care about their job. Sure, money stops people from being miserable, but it will never buy passion. That comes from purpose, from growth, from meaning. That's what really drives people to do great work. Okay, so if money doesn't create passion, what does? Well, another powerful idea, self-determination theory, gives us a great answer. It says we all have three basic psychological needs. First is autonomy, the need to feel like you have some control over your work. Second is competence, that feeling of being good at what you do. And third is relatedness, the need to connect with other people. When a job hits all three of these, that's when you get real, powerful engagement. All right, enough with the theory for a second. Let's see how this stuff actually plays out in the real world. We're going to look at two huge, globally famous companies that have both become massively successful with completely opposite psychological contracts. So on one side, you have a company like Lululemon. They operate on a deeply relational contract. Their whole thing is about holistic development, building a community, and helping employees grow. But then on the complete other end of the spectrum, you've got Netflix, famous for its transactional elite contract. Their motto is basically, we're a pro sports team, not a family. They offer the best pay and a ton of freedom, but in return they expect top-tier performance and there's not a lot of job security. And here's the wild part. They're both killing it, which proves that it's not about one type of contract being better than the other. The magic is in the alignment, making sure the deal matches the company's culture and goals. So this all brings us to the single most important question, right? What does all this mean for you? How can you figure out what your own psychological contract is? And more importantly, whether you're in the right place. Here's a super simple but really powerful 3-point check you can use. First, alignment. Do the company's mission and values line up with your own? Second, agreement. Are those unwritten rules and expectations clear and, more importantly, fair? And third, atmosphere. Does the work environment actually help you grow, or does it just lead to burnout? If you can give a solid yes to all three, you're probably in a pretty good spot. Okay, now let's shift gears and look ahead. Because just when we think we're starting to get a handle on all this, a massive new force is coming that's going to rewrite all the rules all over again. And that force is, of course, artificial intelligence. Think about it. For decades, if you were a knowledge worker, your value was all about your output, the reports you wrote, the code you shipped, the spreadsheets you built. But as AI gets better and better at doing those exact tasks, the very definition of work is going to change, and our need to feel competent will be challenged in totally new ways. So the prediction is that the entire psychological contract is about to flip on its head. Soon, companies won't be paying top dollar for the kind of output that an AI can generate in seconds. Instead, the most valuable things will be the skills that are uniquely human: judgment, empathy, creative problem solving, and the wisdom to know what questions to ask in the first place. You could call this new deal a human-centric alliance. And you know what? This isn't even a new idea. It actually echoes something the legendary management thinker Peter Drucker said decades ago. He argued that in our modern economy, you have to treat knowledge workers like volunteers. They choose to contribute their best thinking. As AI takes over more of the what, the human why and how are going to become more precious than ever. So, that leaves us with one big final question to think about. In a world where AI can do so many of the tasks, the new unwritten contract is going to be all about what you as a human can uniquely bring to the table. The question is no longer just about finding a job that gets you today, but about building the skills that will make you truly indispensable tomorrow.